What is up, everybody? We're on day 142 of our Bible in a Year series, continuing in the book of Esther, the very, in my opinion, underrated book of Esther, and it's picking up today. So let's jump straight in. Chapter 4. When Mordecai learned all that had occurred, he tore his clothes, put on sackcloth and ashes, went into the middle of the city, and cried loudly and bitterly. He went only as far as the king's gate, since the law prohibited anyone wearing sackcloth from entering the king's gate. There was great mourning among the Jewish people in every province where the king's command and edict reached. They fasted, wept, and lamented, and many lay in sackcloth and ashes. Esther's female servants, and her eunuchs came and reported the news to her, and the queen was overcome with fear. She sent clothes for Mordecai to wear, so that he would take off his sackcloth, but he did not accept them. Esther summoned Hathach, one of the king's eunuchs who attended her, and dispatched him to Mordecai to learn what he was doing and why. So Hathach went out to Mordecai in the city square in front of the king's gate. Mordecai told him everything that had happened, as well as the exact amount of money Haman had promised to pay the royal treasury for the slaughter of the Jews. Mordecai also gave him a copy of the written decree issued in Susa ordering their destruction, so that Hathach might show it to Esther, explain it to her, and command her to approach the king, implore his favor, and plead with him personally for her people. Hathach came and repeated Mordecai's response to Esther. Esther spoke to Hathach and commanded him to tell Mordecai, "All the royal officials and the people of the royal provinces know that one law applies to every man or woman who approaches the king in the inner courtyard and who has not been summoned, the death penalty, unless the king extends the gold scepter, allowing that person to live. I have not been summoned to appear before the king for the last 30 days." Esther's response was reported to Mordecai. Mordecai told the messenger to reply to Esther, "Don't think that you will escape the fate of all the Jews, because you are in the king's palace. If you keep silent at this time, relief and deliverance will come to the Jewish people from another place. But you and your father's family will be destroyed. Who knows, perhaps you have come to your royal position for such a time as this." Esther sent this reply to Mordecai, "Go and assemble all the Jews who can be found in Susa and fast for me. Don't eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my female servants will also fast in the same way. After that I will go to the king, even if it is against the law. If I perish, I perish." So Mordecai went and did everything Esther had commanded him. So that's pretty big stand. If I perish, I perish. Chapter 5. On the third day, Esther dressed in her royal clothing and stood in the inner courtyard of the palace facing it. The king was sitting on his royal throne in the royal courtroom, facing its entrance. Excuse me. As soon as the king saw Queen Esther standing in the courtyard, she gained favor with him. The king extended the golden scepter in his hand toward Esther, and she approached and touched the tip of the scepter. "What is it, Queen Esther?" the king asked her. "Whatever you want, even to half the kingdom, will be given to you." "If it pleases the king," Esther replied, "may the king and Haman come today to the banquet I have prepared for them." The king said, "Hurry and get Haman so we can do as Esther has requested." So the king and Haman went to the banquet Esther had prepared. While drinking the wine, the king asked Esther, "Whatever you ask will be given to you. Whatever you want, even to half the kingdom, will be done." Esther answered, "This is my petition and my request. If I have found favor in the eyes of the king, and if it pleases the king to grant my petition and perform my request, May the king and Haman come to the banquet I will prepare for them tomorrow. I will do what the king has asked." That day Haman left full of joy and in good spirits. But when Haman saw Mordecai at the king's gate, and Mordecai didn't rise or tremble in fear at his presence, Haman was filled with rage towards Mordecai. Yet Haman controlled himself and went home. He sent for his friends and his wife Zeresh to join him. Then Haman described for them his glorious wealth and his many sons. He told them all how the king had honored him and promoted him in the rank over the other officials in the royal staff. What's more, Haman added, Queen Esther invited no one but me to join the king at the banquet she had prepared. I'm invited again tomorrow to join her with the king. Still, none of this satisfies me, since I see Mordecai the Jew sitting at the king's gate all the time. His wife Zeresh and all his friends told him, have them build a gallows 75 feet tall. Ask the king in the morning to hang Mordecai on it. Then go to the banquet with the king and enjoy yourself. The advice pleased Haman, so he had the gallows constructed. Chapter 6. That night sleep escaped the king, so he ordered the book recording daily events to be brought and read to the king. They found the written report of how Mordecai had informed on Bigthana and Teresh, two of the king's eunuchs who guarded the entrance when they planned to assassinate King Ahasuerus. The king inquired what honor and special recognition have been given to Mordecai for this act. The king's personal attendants replied, nothing has been done for him. The king asked, who is in the court? Now Haman was just entering the outer court of the palace to ask the king to hang Mordecai on the gallows he had prepared for him. The king's attendants answered him, Haman is there, standing in the court. Have him enter, the king ordered. Haman entered, and the king asked him, what should be done for the man the king wants to honor? Haman thought of himself, who is it the king would want to honor more than me? Haman told the king, for the man the king wants to honor, have them bring a royal garment that the king himself has worn, and a horse the king himself has ridden, which has a royal crown on its head. Put the garment and the horse under the charge of the king's most noble officials. Have them clothe the man the king wants to honor, parade him on the horse through the city square, and call out before him, this is what is done for the man the king wants to honor. The king told Haman, hurry and do just as you proposed. Take a garment and a horse for Mordecai the Jew, who is sitting at the king's gate, and do not leave out anything you have suggested. So Haman took the garment and the horse. He clothed Mordecai and paraded him through the city square, calling out before him, this is what is done for the man the king wants to honor. I'm just imagining this playing out as like a comedic scene. That would be funny. Verse 12. Then Mordecai returned to the king's gate, but Haman hurried off for home. Mournful and with his head covered, Haman told his wife Zeresh and all his friends everything that happened. His advisors and his wife Zeresh said to him, since Mordecai is Jewish and you have begun to fall before him, you won't overcome him, because your downfall is certain. While they were still speaking to him, the king's eunuchs arrived and rushed Haman to the banquet Esther had prepared. Okay, that is it. Very short reading today. I'm trying to make a snap decision. Yeah, we'll end it there. So, very short reading today. Again, this book is not very long. Tomorrow we have 4 chapters, but even that, it's probably not going to be super long. They're not very long chapters. It's basically 3 chapters, because one of the chapters is like 3 verses. But Yeah, so let's jump into the questions. Question 1. Esther's decision in chapter 4 to approach the king, saying, "If I perish, I perish," reflects bold faith. How does her courage challenge us to consider the cost of standing for God's people in moments of crisis? Um, I think more so than the idea of standing for God's people now in the new covenant, um, I think it's more that you're just standing for God, what God wants, what God has told us, God's instruction, things like that. This kind of gives off some Shadrach and Meshach and Abednego vibes, but the difference is they don't mention God specifically. But it's the same idea. Like I'm gonna do this because I know it's the right thing to do. If I die, I die. But it's good. It shows a bold faith in the midst of this darkness that is surrounding Esther and all the Jewish people at the time. This boldness to stand out and, despite the possible consequences, to stand up for what is right. Question 2. Mordecai's words in chapter 4 suggest Esther's position was for such a time as this. How might this perspective prompt us to reflect on how God places us in specific moments to fulfill his redemptive purposes? So, yes, I've said before, everyone has free will. We make our own decisions and everything like that. However, God is sovereign still. God still chooses how things are going to go. He acts accordingly to make that come about. And one way that he does that, I think, is placing specific people in specific time periods or places at a specific time, because he he foreknows that they are going to act a certain way or do a certain thing or things like that. Um, that's kind of how I see this. God picked Esther to be there at that time because of what she was going to choose to do. This can get kind of complicated if we're trying to explain free will and hand in hand with God's sovereignty. Um, it can seem complicated, complex. That doesn't mean that it's necessarily not true. It could just be something that's kind of difficult for us to wrap our heads around. Question 3. Haman's humiliation in chapter 6, forced to honor Mordecai, signals a divine reversal. How does this twist invite us to wrestle with the reality of God's justice, overturning human evil, pointing to Christ's ultimate victory? Again, I'm drawn back to Romans 8. Um, God makes all things work together for good for those who are called, who love God and are called according to his purpose. So, Mordecai was a God fearing man. Mordecai loved God. Mordecai was called according to God's purpose. So even the situation of Haman having to what's the right word? Haman getting promoted while he's hating Mordecai. He's trying to kill Mordecai and the Jews. Even Haman being put into that position ends up positively impacting Mordecai. From what we see here. Mordecai is asked, or Haman is asked what to do for someone that the king wants to honor. Haman thinks it's himself, and so he he goes above and beyond and lists all these things. And then the king says, "Yeah, go do all those things for Mordecai." Like I imagine that would have been a very comical scene, or it could be a very comical scene. But yeah, ultimately, God's sovereign. He's going to work these things out on our behalf as long as we stick with following him and doing what he wants us to do. So let's make sure we're doing that. That is it for today. Appreciate everyone watching and listening up to this point. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I enjoy seeing comments and interacting as much as I can. I still have a full-time job and It's depending on comments, it can be difficult to get in. But I hope this has been a blessing to you. Feel free share this with other people. Word of mouth is the best way the podcast spread, and so you can actually help us to be a blessing to somebody else if they wanted to get into a daily Bible reading plan. That's the whole purpose of what we're doing here with this. So you could help them jump into that, get started on that, and change their life forever by just getting in and reading the Bible in its fullness, reading the Bible. So yeah, tomorrow will be the last day in Esther. Like I said, it's only 3 days. It's a pretty small book, and it's good though. The conclusion is really really good. The entire book is good, but the conclusion is good. So you're gonna want to make sure you come back tomorrow for that. It'll be 4 chapters ish, I think. The last chapter is very small, but 4 chapters. It'll be good. You're not gonna want to miss it. So, thanks. God bless.